Why we are gathered here today is because a lot of Ejagham youths before now have always questioned their origin. But I hope from this very moment, a lot of us will be going back with different mindset, well-oriented.
If we must preserve our heritage as well as transmit a healthy Ejagham tradition to future generations, we must document, we must digitalize, as well as disseminate Ejagham tradition in line with the dictates of the 21st century.
Charles Darwin was right. It is a competition where the least suitable will go extinct and only the suitable will survive. But the Ejagham must not take that position. We must take a liberal position of putting ourselves out there for the world to see.
What EJT is doing is to give us that identity. And that is why we have to take it seriously.
How to coordinate our different versions of Ejagham, it will help us. But we have to agree on one, certainly.
What has caused all of us to be as if we are second-hand citizens is because of lack of unity. The man that says united we stand, divided we fall did not make no mistake. That is the root of all of this.
Ejagham needs to go here, and doing this will entail Ejagham working out a sort of central language which is understandable by every group.
If you study history, you are going to find that the Nigerian-Cameroon border is the epicenter of the Bantu revolution in Africa. And if you study Ejagham migrations and movement, you will see that our people were the very ones who migrated from that center. We are original to the original Bantu. If you do well as a child, your family's name will go up. Your ethnicity will go up. If you do badly, the same will happen on the negative side. Be proud of your identity. And let us see how we can further ourselves politically and economically.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to EJT Talk Show. EJT is a non-denominational, non-political, and non-profit organization established to digitalize, disseminate, and document Ejagham traditional practices, as well as Ejagham cultural expressions. Its mission is to host, promote, harness, and update Ejagham traditional practices and Ejagham cultural expressions in order to safeguard and preserve Ejagham tradition as a true legacy of Ejagham people. My name is Nsao Saje, and with me on the show tonight is...
I am by Bakor.
Ejagham fama Ejagham Abonas na dinji no na wuri kub asabra e kumanji kuma na mfa ane na imetum aka karut e fene nga nsolida sa mburabu yaskan kim nkaimbu no mburo ido jejin kambanji abajena abone Ejagham yakin tigaru pojo kangun asia korut kayara mai kuma na mfa ifona nembanga afona na mit amanga na mbim ayana na njum ayana mbanda ko fam sonka po hen banji Ejagham Akamkpa afene barabo kesiji tin ko babo nya kumanji fa na yara man ka ba ko bo because imanga bimbio yima ifma eno joyful e bare fuma eno joyful and efene eno joyful so atui ya emane ufa me Ejagham yaro na si good abona de bare fuma Nigeria ECG you know enjoy imam you know you don't buy kakete no see so him this libation Ejagham two of our nationalism. We did them. Atua nakaya atua na home. Emane come from. Come to see that. Ejagham be fiare. Don't fa kare. Titi basi go. Kat me see Cross River State. A cameraman for. If I joy for famita. Ajara my dog and amfa. You know a drum G is go to a penny. The Bible Gigi. Keru for. He could be queen year and out. A fella, a man Banji is good gen. Can you not be out? No, I don't am now. And that's a song, a people bep Orodoy. That sauce a boy for a long time. But as you fool, Oyonji, we found sign I know him Jum. No, I jig Willie Doan now. They got a guy down and far. Doke, look what you had. Carrot e come. Tibre me cantum. Carrot are run. Epe will ben. Can he knock and on you know an hour could see? He may tomb you know an hour in him. Can he couldn't family Ejagham you see? Come in far cover. Fernantabe. And Cobray. Take command in go and fan come up because Puro costs and coma. Abaya Bramba and Ampa can go across and coma. If a banjo in Yemena, Nim cow conbu will to an Akam. Kaurumba, Yamaya wood. A Ramji Bena in Majarama, legend can buy you Nova. Antam him goes your bra. There are Nambanga and Ampa can go, a very geeko. Ejagham you from Ejagham na kai pa na kai ati obo kantu except anakai ma join na atu anakai because aba yeni ngbe efena abarakin Ejagham Afabka the lion's den. You know, yeah, I can cut for. Oh, J, so jump, Mario. Yeah, Mario. Come with me.
Ejagham kubuno. Se monya and se are monas. Any child that have met the parents is no more a child. I don't know how to translate it better in English language. It's best suited in Ejagham that I come from. However, the reason for our gathering here today is to collectively discuss our origin as Ejagham people. On behalf of the president of EJT, I apologize for his absence due to other tight schedules. In subsequent editions, he will be here. Reasons for this talk show. Why we are gathered here, we have three paramount reasons why we are here. To interrogate our history collectively, that is the first. And thankful enough, we have panelists who are vested with much knowledge of our Ejagham culture, tradition, and values. Here they are seated. We may not have time to read their citations again today, but hopefully a lot of us, or almost all of us, know them and we know their work. Why we are gathered here today is because a lot of Ejagham youths before now have always questioned their origin. But I hope from this very moment or after now, a lot of us will be going back with different mindset, well-oriented. Now, the second point here is, or reason for our gathering here is, to reevaluate our cultural and traditional practices. I quote Frederick Douglass, one of the freed slaves of America in the 18th centuries, who said, if there is no struggle, there can be no progress. We as Ejagham, we only need to struggle so that we can progress as Ejagham, not as Bakors, not as Akamkpas, not as Etung, not as Bakors, but as Ejagham. Not as Ejagham of Nigeria, but that of Cameroon, South Africa, and every other country concerned with the Ejagham language. That is why we are here today. The third reason for why we are here is to achieve an accepted sense of oneness, rebirth our history, and popularize it. Create a sense of pride to every Ejagham child. And finally, to modify by digitalizing and also consider the documentation and dissemination antics to suit with the 21st century, which we are in. We can only achieve all this by coming together to talk Ejagham. Ejagham samotem nsaraizem tisi.
We are here, we are who we are today because of the achievements of our forefathers and our mothers. I will let you enumerate those achievements. Ejagham people have achieved milestones in all walks of life. Festivities are taking place in various communities. Bakor Ejagham on its own right now. Akachak will be here soon. Those in the academia are engaged in one form of research or another on Ejagham heritage. But here's the challenge. All these things are happening in silos. Festivities are one-time events. Research products are put away in oblivion. Materials generated from all these Ejagham traditional practices and cultural expressions are essentially archived away, where access is difficult in the 21st century. This attitude must change. If we must safeguard, if we must preserve our heritage as well as transmit a healthy Ejagham tradition to future generations, we must document, we must digitalize, as well as disseminate Ejagham tradition in line with the dictates of the 21st century. Ejagham must not be left behind. This is why we are here today. I'll encourage us to sit tight and enjoy the show while Honorable Sandy Ono, who is a lead panelist today, and also a historian, an erudite professor of history, a seasoned politician, will take us on who the Ejagham people are. What are the traditional practices and cultural expression of the Ejagham people? And what are the institutions that form the foundation of Ejagham traditional practices and Ejagham cultural expression? Honorable Sir.
Thank you very much. The Grand Patriarch of all Ejagham people, the Ndidem, who has come at a time when history is unraveling for our good. Atu Ejagham, Ntunka, I'm particularly happy to see you. As a very young man, I followed through your efforts. I'm always very proud of you, Ntunka. I'm happy to see you. Panelists, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I expected to see a bigger crowd here today. I expected to see an assemblage of Ejagham people that will motivate me to give my all as I speak here today. That's what I expected to see at this time of the 21st century. I expected to see our elite. But am I disappointed? Not exactly. I understand the history of struggles. And I understand the mentality of our people. The day will come very soon. There will be no space in this hall. I'll preface this talk, which I have titled The Ejagham in Search of Development, from the Ejagham Improvement Union to the Ejagham Cultural Association, with a story about myself, a very short story. I also try to be very brief. I'll try to tone down the lecture so it can be available in understanding to all of us. Because this lecture is derived from one of the chapters of the last book I wrote when I returned to the university to be professor. When I finished that article, I sent it to Ndidem. When I also put it together as a book with all other articles I wrote in my second missionary journey to the university, I gave it to him. Today, I've brought you some copies of the two books that I think are particularly critical to Ejagham people, and I'll give them to you for free. I graduated top of my class in 1987, and I was expected to come back to the university as graduate assistant, and I did. When I came back, the Japanese government offered scholarship to the best graduating student in history in 1987. That was me. But the person who was Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Emenyonu, was an Igbo man. And the guy who graduated in 1986, Aloy Chife, was rather drafted to take my place, to go to School of Oriental and African Studies in London to do Japan-Nigeria relations, which was the scholarship the Japanese government had offered. As a young man, I felt very sad and disappointed. Of course, I wanted to go to London. I wanted to go to one of the best schools in the world, SOAS. My professor, Erimo Derim, not an Ejagham himself, but one who through his historical excursion and migrations found himself as an enclave community within the Ejagham universe, took me to his office and told me that I was lucky. And of course, as a young man, I couldn't understand him. Why was I lucky? He said, I'm now going to draft you under my wings, and you are going to be the first Ejagham historian who is going to reconstruct the history of the great Ejagham people. I was not excited at all. How could you be excited when you had been denied such scholarship? But today, I now understood what Professor Erim meant. Professor Erim taught me how to write good history. He taught me how to be a good professional. He taught me truly that history occurs in time and space, and that history was a very critical subject. So I started a journey with him, and I thought he was torturing me, but now I know better. At the end of the day, I wrote the first foundational history that was written by a professional historian on the Ejagham, which I titled The Ejagham Nation in the Cross River region of Nigeria. When I went back, I wrote what I called the Leopard's Touch, essays on the Ejagham of the Cross River region of Nigeria. In the course of researching my PhD, I had gone to the Calabar archives, and I stumbled on a document on the Ejagham Improvement Union. I was shocked. If you're familiar with history and political science, you should be able to know Nnoli's work, Ethnic Politics in Nigeria. Okudiban Nnoli. Throughout that book, no mention was made of the Ejagham. They discussed ethnic unions in Nigeria, formed during the colonial period. You know, colonialism provided urbanization. People migrated to urban centers, and in the quest for resources and in the competition of the time, they needed to coagulate and aggregate in platforms that were ethnic. So you had the Igbo Union, You had the Ibibio State Union. You had the Arewa. You had the Egbemo Oduduwa. And such small groups, the Shekri, the Urubu, etc. You had the Middle Belt Congress. You had the Ejagham people also had their own. It was not documented. So Professor Rim was correct. So I picked up that document from the archives and photocopied it. Since that was not exactly what I was looking at, I continued my research. The late Didem called me up one day when he found that I was a young historian. He said he wanted me to write a biography on his father and brought me memoirs that the Didem had documented in a diary. I was looking at the possibility of writing that. Destiny called me into politics. And I paused the idea. Unfortunately, Didem died and his father's biography was not written. But we are telling the story in different forms in what I'm about to say to you. I have elected to speak to you on this topic because it is very critical. You have to first be conscious of who you are and your identity and what it can do for you. Many years ago, as I drove around Calabar, I used to see on windscreens of young Efik boys and girls and men and women Efik in Bakara. I waited for a long time to see something about Ejagham, and one day I was lucky to see Proudly Quo. And I said, oh God, I think we are coming. I speak to you today not as a senator of the Federal Republic, not as a politician. And I want that point made. Because I know when I finish from here, this meeting will raise some dust. If you know me well, I'm equal to dust.
The caterpillar.
Amen. But seriously, I'm going to speak to you as a professor of history. That's how I'm going to speak to you, as a professor of history. And I'm going to speak to you as an expert in Ejagham history. Unless you don't want to write on Ejagham history, you can't escape me. It's not possible. You either agree with me or disagree with me, but you can't escape me. And I'm very grateful to Professor Erim for giving me that vision and allowing me this privilege. So, in this paper, I've said I'm going to tone it down. As I give you copies of the book, you will read it for yourself, because you need to sit down to really understand it. I don't want to go with the grammar there. But the point I have made is that just as you had other associations, there was the Ejagham Improvement Union. So I had said somewhere that in 1945, a pan-Yoruba union, the Egbemo Oduduwa, was formed in London by Yoruba students in the United Kingdom, including Awolowo. Similarly, during the period under consideration, the Ibibio Welfare Union, later Ibibio State Union, was formed in Ikot-Ekpene in 1928. The Urubu Brotherly Society was formed in Warri in 1931. The Igbo Union, later Igbo Federal Union, and much later Igbo State Union was established in Lagos in 1936. It's being documented that in 1938, the Ejagham Improvement Union was also formed. Not many people know that. We shall therefore in this paper seek to throw light on the historical existence of the union, its major proponents, the vision and activities, as well as its role, arguably as the fountainhead from which sprung the currents of modern Ejagham consciousness. But first, who are the Ejagham? Who are the Ejagham? Because many people are still not too sure of the Ejagham. You know, nationality, ethnicity is an evolving concept. Those who were not Ejagham yesterday may become Ejagham today or tomorrow. And a lot of those who say, for instance, that the Efik or Ibibio or Igbo or even Ejagham may not originally be Ejagham and are not expected to be. But the important thing is that when you take all the variables and ingredients at a particular point in time, do they meet 70% of what you hold as your cultural ethos? If it does, then you belong to that identity. So, having examined all of this in my book, The Ejagham Nation, which was a product of my PhD research, I had said this. The Ejagham refers to several groups, including the core of Calabar, Kpabuyo, and Odukwani. The Etung, the Ofutom, Den, Tanslem, Abayom, Nam, Nkome, Olulumo, Akbarabong, Baleb, and Bendegafi, the Nkam, Nkum, and the Kajuk, as well as the Ejagham in Akamkpa. In my book, if you read it, I had clusterized them. Cluster 1, Cluster 2, Cluster 3, Cluster 4, according to their own chronological position. For instance, the core moved first from Bakang. I call them Cluster 1. And that is how I also looked at other clusters. I had said that all of these groups inhabit the Cross River region of Nigeria. It also includes the Ewe and Kiaka groups in the Mayo division of the southwest province of Cameroon. If you read my work, I also explored the difference between the term Atam and Ekoi and Ejagham. If you study it, you will see that Ejagham people, even under colonialism, told the colonialists, we prefer our name, our real name, our identity is Ejagham. Now let me tell you a bit about the formation of this union. Its pioneer executive included Atuekure, president, Oboro Kon Effiong, vice president, Obore Dem, secretary, Nyang Difon, financial secretary, and Osajayok, treasurer. The birthplace of the Ejagham Improvement Union was Lagos, which is understandable and explicable. I already told you about the role of urbanization, the founding of this. These pioneer members, by January 1939, elected to return to Calabar to make the union to be located properly on ground. When they came, they advised themselves that if this union must prosper, then the Didem must be the president. So they invited the Didem to lead them. And the Didem started leading them. So in 1938, in that 1939, a letter to Dewhurst, the colonial administrator, this is what they said. They held a meeting and they called the colonial administrator to come and witness the meeting. This was the report the colonial administrator wrote. His name is J.V. Dewhurst. So on July 25th, 26th, and 28th, I attended a meeting of the Ejagham Improvement Union held at Oban. The union comprises members of the Ejagham tribe from Mamfe, Ikom, and Calabar divisions. It was explained that Talbot, in the peoples of southern Nigeria, refers to the tribe as Ekoi. Ekoi is the description given to them by the Efiks. Their own name for themselves is Ejagham, and by this they wish to be known. You understand? By the 1940s, the union under the able leadership of Didem Ikaika II set out to consolidate its gains through carefully planned enlightenment campaigns across the Ejagham landscape. I want to show you the way these people were dedicated, which makes no sense of what we are doing now. I just want you to imagine the landscape in 1938, 1939, 1940. The forest, the rivers, the streams, the treacherous terrain. I want you to just imagine how it was. No roads. They trekked. Listen to one of the accounts of the Ndidem. The journey started at 6:45 a.m. and Osomba reached after a very short time so far, and it is a stone throw. This was in this diary I told you about. They were feasted. There we were feasted, and consequently started off at 9 a.m. The most tedious journey ever had was the one on this date. The first swift-moving water was known as Ikpai. After that, a mighty stone was seen. Ndebiji was reached at 12 p.m. The next move saw a swift water known as Eku. After some distance, another one known as Ekpenini. Then Bakor was reached at 2:10 p.m., a distance of 9 miles from Aking. Various streams and rocks were passed through before passing through Orem. Ntebachod and finally Naje was reached at 6:40 p.m., a distance of which was about 9 miles, totaling 18 miles. They were trekking. You can imagine His Royal Majesty with all the accompaniments and the grandeur, trekking through the forest, leaving his convenience in Calabar, breaking through the terrain as they were marching to Ikom. If you read the article, you'll see how many days they spent until they got to Ikom. They dealt with a lot of issues, including education generally, and especially girl-child education. One of the things I dealt with when I returned to the university was this universal notion that women have always been traumatized and oppressed. I said, well, we have a way of absorbing everything that comes from Europe as true. I said, you may say so, it may have happened in your culture. But when I look at Ejagham history and culture very well, I don't think it really suffices with us. That is why we are matrilineal. That is why if you investigate in Tongbe, they tell you it was a woman's thing and men took it from them. Women, if all the women in your community decide to aggregate and say you are no longer chief, you are not chief. So we had our Angbe, we locked them in the house when we wanted to. And they had their own Ekpa, they also locked us. And if you dead them, you will shrivel into nothingness. So from that time, Didem and others were very interested in girl child education. They said they didn't want our girls to be prostitutes. And they did a lot to promote girl child education. They also offered scholarship. One of the first scholarship schemes that was launched, the first beneficiary of the scheme was called Efyang Okon of Oban. In the entrance for that year, 1943-1944, he recorded the highest marks, having scored 208 out of 300. So they gave him the scholarship. They did a lot. They talked to the colonial authorities to construct a road between Calabar and Manfe across Ejagham territory. They wanted our people united because they knew that we were great people and were very strong. Many of you do not know, for instance, that in this state today, it is only the Ejagham people that are found in the 3 senatorial zones. Many of you do not know that over 60% of the resources of Cross River are on Ejagham soil. Here in the south, all the industries, all the plantations, they're all on Ejagham soil. The federal institutions, they're all on Ejagham soil. This is who you are. We have the richest civilization. Recently, Chino Achebe made it very clear that CBD is an Ejagham thing. I stated it in my book. CBD means Nchebi. It's an Ejagham thing. It's so clear, it is there. We taught our neighbors all this. Then they are now taking it as their own and making it look so. And we are looking small, in spite of how great we are. Now, after some time, there were issues with the Improvement Union. One of the issues was that other Ejagham groups were saying that the Quos were dominating them. Did them? He said the Quos were dominating them. In the entire executive of, say, 5, the Quos will take 4. And they started to protest. There was the great Ndidem sitting on top. Others felt that at least they should also participate. They started to protest. After that, the Macpherson Constitution came. It was under Macpherson that we started having county councils and so on. So people started thinking in terms of their immediate areas and how to win elections to those places. It affected it. Then the 1961 plebiscite came. You know, when Cameroon decided to drift apart. The war in Cameroon today is happening because of that single decision of our people. If they knew and remained with us, our strength would have been unassailable. And these entire resources would have been ours. It was a tragic mistake that we all regret. And with the plebiscite, the Ejagham Cameroon also went, and it whittled down the strength of the Ejagham Improvement Union. What killed it finally was the death of the Ndidem. By the time Ndidem passed on, the Ejagham Improvement Union died with him. Now, like we used to say in history, you know, if you know the story of Ghana Mali Songhai, from the ashes of Ghana rose Mali, and from the ashes of Mali rose Songhai. So from the ashes of the Ejagham Improvement Union rose the Ejagham Cultural Association in 1989. By then, women like Etung Grace Ayoita were strong and beautiful and exposed and visionary. I met... I'm going to read to them what I said here about Ekokojogo. That was the first time I met Ntufame Derasim. Was a very young man. I was sitting behind in the hall somewhere in Bakor when he was struggling to also put his voice on the discussions that were going on. It was a very serious movement in this state. Let me read to you the origins of the Ejagham Cultural Association. I said this. The man who served as the immediate fountainhead from which the new association flowed and on whose shoulders this new movement rested was in a twist of paradox, an old politician. I had said that Babangida had come, if you read the paper, and he was talking of new breed. But for the Ejagham, the person who was the anchor man was Ekokojogo. That is why I said in a twist of paradox, he was the man. But he now decided to masquerade the association as a cultural association. That is why they called it the Ejagham Cultural Association. His name was Ekokojogo, a distinguished federal parliamentarian of the Second Republic and a committed Ejagham son. Ekok's image at the time as an old politician may largely explain why the association was dressed in cultural robes. The first Congress of the Ejagham Cultural Association was held at Etung on the 4th of February 1989. I remember as a young graduate assistant, Professor Erim wanted me to deliver a paper. They asked him to do the paper. I said, no, my boy is more than capable. But I didn't know Chief Pat Yojong, himself a very capable historian, though, was interested then in something, I won't call it. So nobody misinterprets my standing here. It was very well attended by sons and daughters of the Ejagham Union, including Professor Charles Effiong. Professor Charles Effiong was the icing on the cake at the time. He was the first Ejagham man to be vice chancellor. Was a big man. We were so proud. I remember as a young, I just left St. Brennan's. I was looking for a job. So I was living here in Old Marion. So every evening I would see this elegant man come out and take a walk. I liked him. So I asked them, say, who is he? He says, he's a professor of medicine, of pediatrics. It's an Ejagham man from Oban. I said, God, I will be like this man. Professor Charles F. Young came and gave us strength. His presence meant a lot. He didn't hide it. He didn't care. He was around. And in that meeting, there were a number of dignitaries. I've called Ntunkai Grace Eyoita. She was at her prime, shining example. Tufam Ekongimona, Tufam Joy Tafoke, Tufam Matthew Ojong, Honorable Patrick Ejiekuri, Dr. George Joga, Colonial Usachima. Of course, I put Ntunkai, her name is here. Ntunkai Grace Eyoita, amongst others. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I was very young, but I could take in everything that was happening. Great speeches and intellectually driven papers on Ejagham history, politics, and economics were delivered and well received. It was in this blaze of renewed ascendancy that the second Congress of the Ejagham Cultural Association was successfully held at Akamkpa on April 5, 1989. The Calabar Congress followed on the 17th of June, 1989 with a resounding bang. When we got to Calabar, the ground was shaking. Then politics had come, and everybody was claiming that it was Ejagham. I remember Chief Wilfredina coming to them, Tunkai, to say, I'm Ejagham, I'm Ejagham. So I've been discussing with my brother Igbe Aruku that I don't mind this crowd. One day, very soon, when we call an Ejagham meeting, this arena would be overflowing. And I know what I'm talking about. Now, and I'll say it with Igbe sitting here, because Igbe would understand me. And I'm sure Tunka is sitting here and she understands me. We were to move the Congress from Calabar to Ogoja for the grand finale. At that time, politics came in. Great men like J.I.C. Igbe, his uncle, is still alive, read political motives into the Ejagham Cultural Association and were not a part of that. He was state chairman of party, and he, with Chief Antonio Ani, they wanted Chief Wilfredina. And the Ejagham people had told Chief Wilfredina clearly that, no, you are not Ejagham. Chief Wilfredina and the Yakob people romanced with us at Okamaya and did something our people did not like. Cannibalism. The story can be told because I have said it in several fora. It meets a certain criterion in history which we refer to as internal consistency and external corroboration. What it means is that if you tell a story amongst your kin that is acceptable, and that same story is told by a people it affects in the same way as you are telling it, then it is a true story. So when you meet the Yakob people, they may want to blend the story a little, but they will still tell you that it is true. Naoga's son was killed, died, and happened. What happened was that in Okamaya, there was a tradition. If your person dies, you hand it over to the other group to bury. So if an Ejagham person died, they gave it to the Yakob. If the Yakob person died, they gave it to the Ejagham. And they didn't know that the people that we were giving to them were being eaten. So now God's son, that was the only child she had. So she wanted to know where he would be buried. Lo and behold, she discovered that her son was ending up in pots. And it created that situation where they had to leave. But if you go to the Yakob up till today, you will see clearly that they interacted with the Ejagham people. When the Obam is being played, you will see them sing Ejagham songs. I told people the other day that when I did research on the Ejagham, I found out that Odukpani is a corruption of the word Odunkpani. Now, this is how I captured the fiasco that attended the Ejagham Cultural Association. This is how I captured the end of it. The congressional phase was built to be rounded off on a historic note at Ogoja on a subsequent date, It was at this point that ruthless and ill-motivated political actors within and outside the association mischievously read a political undertone which was considered inimical to the actualization of their ultimate political interest. Thus, they immediately unleashed on the association's membership a viciously divisive virus that forestalled the takeover of the Ogoja Congress, killed the enthusiasm which occasioned the association's birth, and truncated the guiding socio-cultural principle upon which it was predicated. The Ogoja debacle, as I called it, therefore marked an inglorious and end to yet another courageous step geared towards the rejuvenation of pan-Ejagham solidarity. I've looked at all the other issues that I've been dealing with Ejagham people. I've talked about leadership, I've talked about followership, I've talked about artisanship, I've talked about the fact that our people are not taking advantage of the arable land that God has given us seriously to embark on agriculture in a way and manner that is beyond what they are doing now. I've talked about all of that. I've talked of lack of political cooperation as some of our problems. I've dealt with all of that here. Now, I'm trying to conclude. I've talked about colonialism. I said it was a part of it, at the theoretical pedestal. Colonialism talks in terms of I. I hope you know that. Salvation, going to heaven, is your duty. Do you understand? The sense of aggregation. I even grew up to meet Ejagham society that made you see your father's friend as your father, your mother's friend as your mother. And she also had a right because she saw you as the daughter or the son. If you were doing something bad somewhere, she can give you a knock. She can. That is the Ejagham society we even met. Not this one where you see your friend's son doing something very bad, you just pass. If you touch the boy, he goes to the father. He will come. Who gave you the authority to touch my son? Completely stupid society turned upside down by the virus of colonialism. I traveled as far as St. Kitts and Nevis. When I crossed over to Nevis, these are two islands making one country, I met an old driver who drove me round with my family. He said to me these same things I'm telling you. That this our island used to be very beautiful because we had just Africans here. That when I grew up as a man, this was a society where you could not steal. If you tried to steal, anybody that caught you will report. That we saw all elders as our fathers and mothers. Then Americans came and destroyed us. Now, let me make this point as I begin to wind down. We should be proud of our identity. There is nothing negative about ethnicity if it is properly channeled. The fact that we are proudly Ejagham does not mean that we hate our neighbors. It means that we are trying to channel our God-given potential and identity and strength and capacity to achieve our purposes. And we have a right to do so. We have a right to do so. Because you cannot extract yourself from who you are, from your identity. Abuses are not just personal, they are also collective. Just as fame is not just personal, it's also collective. If you do well as a child, your family's name will go up. Your ethnicity will go up. If you do badly, the same will happen on the negative side. So we cannot afford to begin to not be proud of who we are. I was talking to my son the other day. He told me, Daddy, every day you talk to me about these Ejagham people, I go to the internet, I don't see them. You talk to me about, but when I go to the internet, what I see is different. I say, I'm about the only person who has been writing on my people. I want to encourage all other people to begin to write about them. That is why I congratulate these young people for what they are doing. Because what is pushed out there will be taken for true. When I wrote the history of the Ejagham people, I dealt with all those issues, including the fact that the Kwa are the original inhabitants of this area. I didn't go to the gutter with some of those people who were making too much noise. No. I'm a professional historian. I'm not being political. When I'm dealing with history, I'm dealing with facts. So I didn't go into that gutter to begin to make arguments with them. You said this. No, I am saying, no. When I talked about the Kwas as the original inhabitants of Calabar, I referred them to all the works of Ford, of Talbot, of all these people, David Ney, colonialists who were impartial. I quoted about 10 of them. If you want to fight with them. They had no business saying that you were the original inhabitant if you were not. Now, I have said that others are proud of their identity, we should be proud of our own. Listen to what Olusegun Mimiko said about the Odua People's Congress. You people know the Odua People's Congress, isn't it? At the time that Mimiko, as governor, was speaking about Odua People's Congress, Odua People's Congress was very notorious in this country, but they stood for it. They stood for it. And this is what the governor said. Today, I tell you that in Yoruba land, many people will feel more secure with OPC guarding their streets than the conventional police. One thing is clear, and I have always said this, that OPC is about protection of Yoruba people because Yoruba people hate injustice. As a governor of Ondo State, I'm proud to be associated with OPC. That's why they are proud of their identity. They speak their language everywhere. Thank God I went to the Senate, and I'm senator. When I'm speaking about Nigeria now, I'm not just being theoretical. When I'm speaking about Nigeria, I'm being practical. It's something I can see. I'm in a place where we are the Nigeria. So you see the way people protect their own. They protect their own. If people can protect their own like that, why can't we protect our own? And somebody comes to make you to feel shy or afraid of protecting your own, and you cringe. When your civilization is more superior than any other around, why will you cringe? Why are you afraid? Now, I try to make this point, and I think you permit me just read it quickly as I conclude. Mimiko's apparent vote of confidence on the OPC would appear to be representative of the views of a great number of Nigerians who see the organization of development along ethnic lines as profitable and legitimate. Based on the obviously profound reports of the successes recorded by many of the ethnic unions from the very early days in the first half of the 20th century, many Nigerians who are products of the developmental efforts of these unions and whose offsprings are regaled with impressive stories of their successes cannot but look back with nostalgia and pride at these unions, or at what these unions stood for and achieved. A lot of the people, these unions I mentioned, Igbo State Union, Ibibio Welfare Union, or Ibibio State Union, Arewa People's Congress, they gave a lot of scholarships, as we tried to do here. And these people went to school abroad on these scholarships and came back. The children they have, they told them stories about what these unions did for them. And their children have been very impressed with those stories. Why wouldn't they be proud of their identity? They're very proud of their identity up till today. It is therefore not surprising to witness a resurgence of these ethnic unions at this critical period in Nigerian history, where there is a desperate search for new developmental pathways in the present morass of hunger, unemployment, insecurity, and general doubt about the desirability or otherwise of the Nigerian state, especially in its present geopolitical and fiscal configuration. If you look at Nigeria, a lot is going on. People are beginning to reassess the basis for the union. That is why people are talking about restructuring. In this debate, a lot of people are going back to themselves to say that what we have is our ethnicity, is our identity. We belong to Nigeria, but we belong to Ejagham first. We belong to Cross River, but we belong to Ejagham first. Do you understand me? Indeed, there are some who posit that fostering development along the lines of ethnicity is an integral part of the logic and clamor for decentralization and devolution of powers, which allows different geo-ethnic groups the liberty to grow at their respective pace, which ultimately will make Nigeria a better federation with minimal tensions. They are pushing the argument. They are aggregating, they are congregating, they are building together. This clamor, which is clothed in the current phraseologies of true federalism or fiscal federalism, appears to be gaining ascendancy, even as others argue that increased empowerment of geo-ethnic groups and their governmental institutions may have the tendency of unleashing centrifugal forces on the polity. Nobody is ready to listen. They say if we build together and we are strong, we can come together stronger. And I can tell you that what is going on in Nigeria today is that kind of building. I can see it, I can sense it, I can touch it, and it is true. If in the first stage we missed out, we cannot afford to miss out now. The lesson for Ejagham people in the Cross River region of Nigeria is that it is clearly unfashionable in contemporary Nigeria to shy away from searching for development along ethnic lines, in spite of the existence of other platforms, for example, institutional, social, political, and economic, around which organization of development formally revolves. The fact that I organize development along the lines of Ejagham does not make me any less a PDP man or any less an intellectual. Those are all platforms seeking for the furtherance of development, just as the Ejagham platform also seeks for development. Ejagham people need necessarily to reappraise for greater effectiveness and efficiency their approaches and methods as they surge forward in what appears to be a new era of healthy competition for development amongst ethnic groups in Nigeria, determined to egg relevance in the ever-changing dynamics of Nigerian federalism. So this paper, which I've tried to paraphrase and summarize and so on, is just meant to let you know that you have an identity. In some of the books I'm going to distribute to you, depending on which one comes to you, are going to find that Ejagham culture is the richest around here. Mbe, we are the ones who have and own. And that is the truth. Nzibidi is our own. Read my works and read Achebe's last book, There Was a Country. The monoliths in Ikom dated 200 AD are Ejagham creation. I have dramatized that in my works before I left the university. We are great people. We are part of the Bantu revolution. In fact, we are an integral component of the Bantu revolution. If you study history, you are going to find that the Nigerian-Cameroon border is the epicenter of the Bantu revolution in Africa. And if you study Ejagham migrations and movement, you will see that our people were the very ones who migrated from that center. We are original to the original Bantu. That is why our language is called Echoid Bantu. Yeah, read the double crab. We are Echoid Bantu, and the characterization is very clear there. I'm not speaking sentiments or propaganda. I'm talking hardcore history with hardcore facts. So this night, as you go back, reflect on who you are. Think deeply. Be proud of your identity. And let us see how we can further ourselves politically and economically. God bless all of you.
Ekumse, you heard Honorable with his discussion titled Ejagham in Search of Progress. And we are talking about the 21st century here. With the awareness that we are in the 21st century, we are talking about the era of internet. How do you think, or what do you think can be done to digitalize, document, and disseminate this information?
Thank you very much. Asiamana yana mankubeno. Nkamane kumse etama koropota kui eta. Memone ndebiji. Nyayarena kamkweku. Ane gembang jo karanon game yam jimba game fakuchi ovna. Nsren fenen tu wimbanga make kuwinji. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our royal fathers and mothers, it is a privilege to stand here to represent the youths of Ejagham on this dialogue. Let me go straight to the point. Professor Sandy has raised very critical issues about the nation in which I belong to. And as an undergraduate student studying education history in the university, a lot of my professors talked a lot about Professor Sandy, but I was a bit disappointed that he taught me so much while he never saw me. And I'm grateful I'm seeing him today. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The 21st century is a blessing and a curse. It's a simultaneous relationship. We're in an age where information can reach everyone, and we all have intelligent gadgets with us. But these tools cannot work if we don't work, because people work these tools. And the question has always been, what have we as a people done to put ourselves into the global side of all, because we are always in competition for existence. Charles Darwin was right. Charles Darwin was right. It is a competition where the least suitable will go extinct and only the suitable will survive. Professor Tandy talked about colonialism. One may want to say it is a natural instinct of man to colonize, but it is left for you. Do you want to colonize or you want to be colonized? But the Ejagham must not take that position. We must take a liberal position of putting ourselves out there for the world to see. First and foremost, if you open your Google page, a typical Google page, you will be amazed. You will see Ede Yoruba, you will see Hausa, you will see Igbo. You will not see Ejagham. Why? Because these people have codified their language. They've put it to symbol, they put their sounds to symbol, they have standardized it, and then they have put it into the space where the whole world can see them existing. We've not done that. I see Professor Sandy's book on Amazon, and sometimes I try to get the audio version, but I cannot get it because Ejagham's sons and daughters are the ones to do it. If Amazon does it, they do it for their own benefit, not for the benefit of Ejagham. So going forward in the 21st century, the first thing we need to do is to come out with an action plan, a standardized body that will not allow the 21st century be a curse to Ejagham. A curse in the sense that if we take the traditions of our people and the cultural expressions of our people into the visual space, anybody the world over can exploit it for their own benefit. And then people are also adulterating cultures. For instance, if I pick up an intelligent gadget, say video, and then video somebody who is pouring libation wrongly and put it to the internet, an Ejagham's son in Texas will say, this is how they pour libation, and then we have altered tradition. So, first point going forward, we must create an institution that must supervise this. And that's why I'm grateful for the Ejagham Tradition organization. Because we may not have enough time to talk about the digitalization process here, but I'm just giving you my thoughts. The organization, I'm in contact with the organization, and we are already building a plan to produce the first ever digital history of the Ejagham nation.
Sometimes others may see us as people who hate themselves or who don't like themselves, which is actually not. How or what can we do, or what can we use to leverage our common Ejagham cultural values?
Thank you very much, Your Majesty, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me correct my names. My name is Igbe Aruku. If you want to add MNI, you add that. Incidentally, I conducted my research on the history and migrations of the Ejagham people in 1984, even before Sandy Ono graduated from the University of Ibadan. I I have the history, I have the knowledge, and I know what I went through. The archives from Enugu to Ibadan, eventually to the Institute of African Studies to get to where I did. Yes, it is easy for you to say that we seem to turn our backs. We turn our backs on ourselves because, like the professor said, we have not had an identity. I don't want to mention names. In the 80s, I remember in the 80s, in this state, where we had our sons and daughters who were commissioners and all that, they refused to identify, and Tunkai knows, I don't want to mention names, with ourselves. It was easy for us to identify with other groups we thought were stronger, even though we were much stronger in terms of numerical strength and all that. So there is this tendency for you to think that, oh, because I am Bakor, I won't align with an Akamkpa or a core person. And let me tell you how it works. Let me give you an analogy. If you go to Abuja, and take it from me, and an ethic man, I'm sorry, I have to be very practical. I'm a very practical person. An ethic man is sitting down there to employ people, right? A core man comes, or an atam man comes, and an ethic man comes. And the person who is sitting down there is from Akwa Ibom. Do you know who he will take? He will take the atam man. If you keep the atam man to sit down there, an ethic man comes, or a core man comes, and the BBO man comes, you will take the core or the ethic person. But if you keep the ethic person there, you prefer the person from Akwa Ibom. I hope you people have not noticed it. A few years back, every young man from Akwa Ibom was coming to Cross River to get married. You've not noticed that? I did. So I called Senator Aniete Okona and said, Senator, what is happening? He said it was a deliberate policy. So yes, we seem to give credence and to give respect to our neighbors instead of ourselves because we have not actually gotten that identity. What EJT is doing is to give us that identity. And that is why we have to take it seriously. When I got here, I was sitting in my car for over 1 hour, and I called the secretary of the Bakor Union in Ogoja Bakor in Calabar. I said, look, how come I'm alone here? He said, but they didn't tell us to come. Dan is here. Dan, are you here? Yes, he's here. We have a very strong Bakor association, Ogoja, in Calabar. And I tell you, they would have filled this hall if we had let them know that they should be here. But you see, this is a beginning. Next year, we are going to take our time and organize it. I'm going to be there. I have done protocol job most of my career, so most of you know me. It's not difficult to organize. Next time, we are going to have a bus load of Ejagham people from Akamkpa, a bus load from Ogoja, a bus load from wherever, so that we sit down, listen to ourselves, and then we thrash out some of these issues you have raised. You need to know who and what you are. You need to be, look, I'm so happy with the t-shirts you made, proudly Ejagham. You have to be proud of where you come from first. If you are not proud of where you come from and who or what you are, nobody's going to take you seriously. So that is why we are where we are. Thank you very much.
Reverend Father Ojong, let me address you as Ntufan. Yojembe. Yentuwengbe. Mpa sanctuary as a kunanonge direma kunge cham. Father, Ejaghams are set to spread over the international boundaries between Cameroon, Nigeria, South Africa, and many other countries unmentioned here. How can we have a cultural integration? And how will this integration be used for the empowerment of Ejagham people and our local communities.
Thank you very much. My brother, thank you for what you said about the great trek. That is the origin of life. And life started with the Ejagham people, following your ascension. You know, I went to, sorry that I'm telling a little history. I went to Kenya this year. I left Kenya, I went to Uganda. From Uganda, I went to the Nile. That's where life begins. On the 5th of May, I attended a ceremony in Uganda. I picked a periodical. I was flipping through the pages. I saw written there, Karamojong. I said, what? And a dance led by the people of Karamojong in Uganda. Then I went into one small book written in 1957, I've forgotten the author. He talked about clusters that the professor told us about. Clusters. Then I came back, my own is not yet published. I rewrite my own Ejagham origin, which I started by saying, Ejag. Ejag means that which was one is now broken and it is now going unending. What do I mean by that? We started at the Bantu. There was a split at the Bantu. Ejagham led by one Ojong took them. Karam in Ejagham almost everywhere is give me. And this other cluster, when this other side, Bakor, I am trying to create, to build up a meaning from what I saw in Uganda. Ejagham now to me means that which was one, split now, is going on ending without end, and is now crying for unification. What is he? He's now crying for unification. And what brings that? I am an associate professor in anthropology, language. Language is the only problem. That is where we are. You see, if you go to Abagana, they have Igbo in Abagana, Abagana Igbo, Indonesia, Igbo. They are different. But the Igbos sat down together and decided, let us use one Igbo as a central. I think that is Imo. They are not moving. It's language. Ejagham is so varied, so wide. The only place we don't have Ejagham, I've not been where Ejagham is in South Africa. But in 1974, when they came here for Festa, 74, 75, we heard people speaking Ejagham. We asked them, they asked us, where are you from? We told them we are from Nigeria, Akamkpa. And they said from South Africa. We didn't take it serious. So I have covered Ejagham of Nigeria in my research, Ejagham of the Cameroons, from there into the Congos, from there into Kenya, Uganda. Where I am yet to go is South Africa. From south to the east to the west of Africa is all Ejagham. So it's wide. It's a big project. As he said, it's not only in the Cross River State and Cameroon. It's like this. I have stopped here. What is left is here. That's the Ejagham of South Africa. It's a big project. My brother, what will help us is language. How to coordinate our different Ejagham, the different versions of Ejagham. It will help us. But we have to agree on one, certainly. I have seen many versions. That one in the Cameroons, I went there, I saw them like a cap. Accents change meanings. So the guy gave cap, but I gave almost 3 meanings to that same word because of the accents. A great work to be done. I am very happy. Sandy is there. I am also there as an anthropologist. Dr. Solomon Okwaita is there also. Ndidem is there. We are in the academia. So we are glad today. Thank you for coming. We are behind you. Thank you.
As the question you asked the Reverend, early this year, I got a visitor from South Africa. You see, commercialization is making people think out of the box. This lady came in, I don't know who referred her to me, but they are trying to put together the Bantu groups of West Africa. They're trying to create a union. So the question you ask is not actually out of place. There are people who are actually thinking about it. Because this lady, a white lady came to me. They are trying to create a Bantu union and then to call for a meeting to integrate the Bantu people. Now, we used to have a medical doctor at Shibori. He was an eye doctor. That was in the early 90s from Zimbabwe. Every evening you find him at the playground drinking palm wine. Then one day I told them, he said, this is your language you are talking. You know, I understand what you are saying. And they said, go away. He said, okay, say something. They said something. He interpreted. He said, say something. You know, and he said, no, it's because you have been here for some time. He said, no. Now, this is what you say. This is how you say it. This, in my language, this is the way we say it. And he said it. And the people understood what he meant. Now, you talked about digitalization. Incidentally, I'm the permanent secretary in the Ministry of ICT here in the state. And thank God Ededasame is here. My research at the National Institute was e-governance and efficiency in public service. You know what happened? The DG of the institute sent 3 teams made up of 4 professors to Cross River State to find out whether what I was talking about was actually true. That my DG is now Nigeria's permanent rep at the United Nations. Now, when they got here, they went back and wrote a report. I know what I scored. I mean, I still go to NIPS. They still invite me to, because of that research, that project. So, we had gotten to a stage in this state where digitalizing Ejagham culture wouldn't have been. I have the personnel, I have the staff. They are there, well trained. Tufam is here, he knows. But where are we today? Everything that was done has crumbled. If not, I would have told you that come to my office. I'll give you 2 people who will now begin to digitalize Ejagham traditions. But that is where we are. So we have the people who have the knowledge, the capacity, the ability to do what we want them to do. Just that the infrastructure which we put in place is lying dormant in this state. I tell you today that other states, Edo Delta, they come to poach my staff from Cross River to go and build their networks. It is so unfortunate, but that is the problem we have.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. Ntunka, my question is for you, ma. I'm sure you heard what Reverend Father said about language. Now, in a comparative approach, America is over 200 years old, but the American Indians have almost gone extinct. For instance, in Calabar, let me come back home. In Calabar here, we have 3 ethnic groups. We have the Kwas, Efot, and the Efik. But we have 2 predominant languages spoken. Ekin, which is for the Kwas, and the Efik, instead of 3. The Efots have lost theirs. How can we sustain our Ejagham language? How can we sustain the values? How can we sustain our culture in consonance with what Honorable as well as Igbe Aruku mentioned, that all we need is an identity.
Thank you. Whenever I see my Didem, I'm always very elated, very, very proud of him. Very proud of him. Thank you, sir, for being the patriarch of the Ejagham nation. I want to be very brief. There are a few things I want to mention. First, let me thank God for making this day possible. And let me thank young Chris Anom for this initiative. May God bless him. He's not relenting. He's not relenting. He's fighting. Let me also thank distinguished Senator Professor Sandy Ono, our very own, for taking Ejagham to putting everything in paper the way he has done it. And I'm happy to hear that my younger brother here is also towing that line. And from what I'm seeing around, it looks as if we are going places. The one person that I would have wanted to be on this high table to tell you about the history of Ejagham is Ederokonasam. Barrister, Ntufam Barrister Ederokonasam. He knows it in his fingertip. He knows how to talk about it, and he knows everything concerning this state. I believe that next time he will be very much around. He's around, but he's not on the high table here to talk. He has a lot to offer. Let me very specially thank the man that always liked to be called Igbe Aruku, MNI. He doesn't like any protocol. He doesn't want to be called Ntufam Chief, this and all of that. I thank God for him, for his presence, because he would have not been complete if somebody from Bakor was not sitting here on this high table. I thank all the people that matter in municipality that have been driving force to this municipality on all the meetings we have been attending, which is headed by our patriarch. He gives instruction and we carry. I always come from Abuja to make sure that I attend. Let me acknowledge my small sister who went to research and wants to bring out the dynasty of Ejagham up to any extent. He's the one who first told me, she's the one who first told me that we have 27 countries that are Ejagham. Lady Kate of Young. Let me acknowledge her. Yes, she's a role model, and she's the publisher of a Standout magazine in Abuja. God will bless us. The questions that you have asked, let me dwell on them like this. I want to ask us to first and foremost try to unite. What has caused even municipality to be the way it is? Even what has caused all of us to be as if we are second-hand citizens is because of lack of unity. And sometimes we feel inferior about ourselves. It's like we have no confidence in ourselves, and so we allow so many things to take place around us. The man that says, united we stand, divided we fall, did not make no mistake. That is the root of all of this. We have different languages, to come to your question. We have different variations, because as you settle here, you adopt something, you go to the other place, you adopt, and those changes here and there have been occurring, because it depends on how large you are. Ejagham people are very large. They are massive. They are everywhere. And then as they settle, they adopt something. And then there are variations here and there. And how can we, there must be a committee that will be set up to look into that matter. It's a very serious matter. You can still speak your language while you have the general one that you speak, so that way we will all know that even from school, even if we cannot do it, our children will do it. We need to do that. We have to put things together. Let me correct a little impression. There was the time that Prof spoke. He forgot something. Before we met Etung, it was in my house that we called that meeting here in Calabar, in my house. The secretary then was my senior brother, Okwaitu. He was the secretary. As a woman, all that I did was to coordinate them. Our brother that is late today, a fighter, okay? Who is late today? My uncle, Ekong Imona, they were the people that we started the meeting in my house, in my parlor. Then the third one, we invited Professor Effiong to come because we saw him as the only person that we had. And we invited Erim. It was Professor Erim that told us that Ekong Ojogu, our brother in Ikom, is also doing the same thing. That's how we move here to join him in Ikom. That is very important. It's very paramount to know that that was that. And we started moving everywhere. The thing died because of politics. That's why even here, the one DDM has asked us to handle. When people are coming with politics, I say, please don't bring in politics again. Don't bring it again. If somebody is contesting as an Ejagham son or daughter to become a governor of Cross River State, you can lobby people individually to meet somewhere. But the one that has started here, please let us not bring in politics into it so that we will not destroy it as the other one. Because many people became interested, and because of their interest, everything just went the way it did. So it shouldn't happen again. Unity, love, unity. Today, if we are seeing so many people here and they see me tomorrow and they come to me and I'm an Ejagham woman, I should be able to receive them. Where did we meet? He said, we met at so and so place. I should receive that person. Please, give me your phone number. Take my own phone number. Let us try to do that. If we do not get ourselves together, we will continue to run into problems. All our traditions, all the things that I grew up to see, that my grandmother, a big poor woman here, showed me, all of those things are gone. Because people have taken them. People have stolen them. People are not saying the truth. Some of us can die because of this thing. Some of us can go sick. Sometimes I will not sleep. When I hear anything, I will call. Who is here? Who is there? Do you see what is going on? Can we continue to allow these things to happen like this? That has been my stance. And I believe that it is the stance of so many of us. But let us foster unity. May God bless us all.
And to farm, Chief Federico, sorry, you have not spoken till this moment, but it's a very critical issue which we would love you to talk on. Specifically in Tufam, in retrospect to your book titled The Quarrel, published in the year 2005, according to what we see on the pages. That book, in page 4 of it, chapter 4, also, page 38, chapter 4, captures Mbe as popularly depicted as the leopard cult of the Kwo and the entire Ejagham nation. Mbe is the highest traditional institution, certainly the most important and revered. We acknowledge that there are sacred and sacred dimensions to these institutions, attractive to contemporary population, Ejagham youths and non-Ejagham people alike. Ntufam, there is need to modernize and update these institutional practices, yet still maintain and preserve its core values. What are your thoughts on this? How can we do this?
Your Royal Majesty and the wife, traditional rulers and chiefs, please, my thoughts on this, I will go this way, that Ejagham needs to, I don't know, cohere. Ejagham needs to cohere. And doing this will entail Ejagham working out a sort of central language which is understandable by every group. Just like the Igbos have, Igbo Central, it doesn't stop the other groups having their languages. So when we do that, it's quite obvious that we will get to understand ourselves much better. You see, now, if I speak my language, my Bakor brother won't even hear or know. And so, when we have that, definitely we are ready for something. But coming to Ngbe, we need to please get all our people together. And the different shades must, no, don't worry about Bakam. Yes, I wanted to say that we need to, restructure the Ngbe thing. That is what we have here. If you go up to Nsofang, you should be able to have the same constitution. By constitution here is the protocol and practice that you find in each of these. When we do that, then we will be ready, you see, to use Ngbe. Ngbe is very formidable body for uniting uniting the Ejaghams. And let it be, we will modify it when we understand ourselves. Then we emphasize the recreational aspect of the whole thing. Keep on playing, people dance. Good dance will attract people. We bring intra and inter-clan visits. And they go there, they play, they dance, they demonstrate. Those who know how to make these signs with dance, it will attract a lot of our young fellows. It will attract even those not squaws who will want to join. And that way, we will become attractive to everybody.
Thank you very much for that. Let me crave the indulgence of the House. The Ndidem will have to leave us soon, so I crave the indulgence of the House for him to do his closing remark briefly.
Ejagham I will want to start from the last statement made by Ntufam. You asked a question, you see, Ntufam Rekbo is very skeptical to speak clearly because Osram Soringbe, KG and Akakoma, even though Imanga and Akaino for Nangbe before it tabe. But we are very skeptical. But I want to tell you, today it is bastardized to call NCBD. Have you seen what is behind you there? Do you know what they call it? I don't say Efeamba. Do you know what it means? The interpretation is that as you look, I am coming. Now look at what you see behind there. If you have eyes to interpret, supposing you want to interpret all of them before I get to you, how soon or how long will it take you to interpret it before I get to you? It is our mastermind trick to play what we want and get to where we are going. Sincerely speaking, I don't want to be too flabbergasted in statement. But sincerely speaking, anybody who comes to Plengbe today will not understand the relic or the intricacies of it, except an Ejagham man will tell you what Ngbe is. The fact remains that we refuse to bastardize it. You see, the Ejagham or the Bantu people are too skeptical. Because of that, in many of their attitude, they behave very introvert in nature. Introvert in nature doesn't mean you don't know. Introvert in nature means you don't want to expose it. And CB is not what we should give to everybody. Today, researchers, as Aruko has said, suppose Aruko is not an Ejagham man, and with his wisdom and interest in research, we start writing and putting Ngbe into documentation. Aruko will know Ngbe more than me. Is it not true? PS. But the Ejagham people try to protect it and keep it behind them. As we are saying, my young student, you see, I listened to you speaking and I was taken aback that you make me remember when I was also an undergraduate student. When a student is vibrating, you will know a student who is a student. You will know a student who can represent you tomorrow. As you see, Barrister Grace Yoita is my sister and my mother. If your sister is senior than you, can you call her a mother? My mother, don't worry. Don't mind them. She knows me in toto. Patrick is not a very quiet person. Patrick doesn't look for trouble, but Patrick is a very dogged individual that will take you to where you are going. Sincerely speaking, I never knew that the thing will bring me to this seat today. And if I have come to this seat today and I see the support of those of us who are here, it means we can change this environment. I was happy when Professor Sandiono spoke. The next person that will speak next time is Ejagham as a set. The next person is this Solomon, because I'm seeing my group mate at the time period, who has also worked to become something. We never started because our father pushed us or pamper us. We work as individual people who do not have who to support them, but you strive to become what you should be. Just keep your hand down. Don't think as if the world has finished. The world has not finished. We are still going on. Sincerely speaking, I want to appreciate all of us for coming here today. We have spoken. I want to make one statement for the organizing committee. Sarah and my brother, I think you are representing the EJT. I'm a member, you know it. Yes. But let us make one thing very clear. This issue of Ejaghamism that we are projecting, we don't project individual leadership. We are projecting the Ejagham tomorrow. I need all of us to know that as time comes up, I will try to summon all of us to put heads together and see where we are factoring. Let me tell us the difference between us and the Oduduwa group. Lectures here by Professor Sandiono has projected it. The matter is that the Oduduwa group did not start by looking for political placement or identity. The Oduduwa group started by formulating their economic foundation and stability. If you formulate your economic foundation and stability, you will use your economic prowess to advance by encouraging your people to grow. Look at what is done today. Do you think this thing can be done? Somebody should come to need them, to say, need them. We need some mobilization to start this thing. It should not be, because it is an Ejagham matter. And we have Ejagham people who are well to do. Isn't it? If you sit in your house and claim the name of Ejaghamism, and when the matter comes for contribution, you refuse to come, are you truly an Ejagham man? We need to go back home and ask ourselves that question. If you are an Ejagham man, get prepared to make a little sacrifice and contribute when it is necessary. The year is passing. 2020 is coming. If you want to draw a baseline, we use where we are today to make a baseline. And next year, we project what we want to be. When we project what we want to be, we will commit ourselves by saying, this is what we want. We draw the budget. This is what it will take. And we tell ourselves, what do we contribute? Whether you like to hear it or not, as Sandy has said, his lecture will become a matter of ridicules or talk tomorrow. Because as we are here, the thing is already in the net. And as Patrick is standing here, the matter is already in the net. People will be seeing me talking right now and listening to me. But I'm not afraid to talk. If you don't tell somebody you are there, nobody will want to know that you are there. Projecting the image of where we come from is our duty because we come from it. Where you come from is stronger than where you must give support. Because at the end of the day, assuming somebody who goes to work for government commit an offense and bastardize, won't he come back to the village? Oh, you think when he comes back to the village you can reject him? You can never. Because in this life, there must be the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tomorrow, that person that you thought has committed so much may give you an answer to a question that you were looking for a solution. Isn't it? Let's consider ourselves to be very important. It will help all of us. Leave the matter of Mbe. But when we sit down in the conclave to talk about Mbe, we will know if we have to reduce this thing into some digital writing, because sincerely speaking, we refuse to do it because we know that our brothers around us, especially those who are grandchildren of the Ejagham nation, are the people who bastardize us more. This is the starting point. It is better late than never. Today we have started. Papa, that's a joy Yahweh. Ntunga, I honor you. My boy, you need to see me again because you need to know more. And the organizers, Ntufam, at your level, at your age, and your situation, and you still come up here, I want to appreciate you the more. You saw how joyful I was to see you. It means you still have something to give us before you go. Don't go too fast. So. We are still honoring you. But I say, all of you who have come here today, I want to tell you thank you for coming. Excuse me for leaving you, because the activity does not end today. It continues tomorrow. And for me who has been here since morning, I need to have a little rest to work up for tomorrow. God bless you.